Chicago Med reintroduced a forgotten but important character in Season 10, Episode 4. While several characters could return in Chicago Med in Season 10, the one that was just brought back was not any of the characters who had left the series in recent years. Instead, the new season's latest episode included a subplot revolving around Nurse Jackie Nelson, who last appeared on Chicago Med near the end of Season 9. Jackie's return revolved around Maggie's reluctance to allow her to take on the duties of the job she was hired for. Instead, Maggie dealt with the nurse's stock supplies and performed other tasks not related to patient care, causing tension between them. Maggie's reluctance came from the fact that the missing Chicago Med character had a mental health problem that required her to be hospitalized at the end of her last visit. However, Jackie's original story on the show had mostly been forgotten despite being very powerful, namely because it was overshadowed by a different plot in the same episode. Nurse Jackie Nelson's Chicago Med history explained. Her self-harming behavior led to an involuntary commitment. Chicago Med Jackie stands with a cart and a bloody hand while Maggie holds out her hand to make a point. Jackie has only appeared in one other episode of Chicago Med, making her more forgettable despite a strong story. She was a trauma nurse who worked with Maggie in the ED in Season 9, Episode 12. Maggie noticed signs that Jackie was burnt out and not performing well, but Jackie insisted she was fine despite being overwhelmed by a mass influx of patients. Later, Maggie learned that Jackie was cutting herself and turned to Dr. Charles for help. Eventually, Jackie was committed involuntarily for 72 hours after Maggie found her passed out on the bathroom floor. This led to the awkward interactions between Jackie and Maggie, as well as Jackie's perceived need to apologize to Charles. Jackie was resistant to the idea that she needed help and was hostile to Charles because he forced her into inpatient care. Although Jackie has healed enough to be able to resume her work duties, Maggie's trepidation is understandable, considering that Jackie's habit of working too hard contributed to her burnout and self-harming behavior the last time she worked in the ED. How Marcel's exit impacted Jackie's Chicago Med disappearance. Her story was overshadowed by his. Jackie appeared in the same episode of Chicago Med as an intense Marcel story. This story was also emotional but involved a major character rather than a one-off guest star. Marcel's story also made an impression because it was so heartbreaking. Through the episode, he debated whether he would be able to go ahead with a liver transplant for a child desperately in need of one despite an infection. When Marcel eventually cancelled the transplant, it led to a double tragedy when both the boy and his father died. This series of events led to Marcel's exit from Chicago Med. Jackie's story was one and done, with her being introduced as a burnt-out nurse in the same episode that ended with her going to rehab. Guest stars don't often make a lasting impression regardless of how strong their story is. Additionally, Jackie's story competed with Marcel's, which was longer term. Thus, Jackie had been long forgotten by the time she reappeared in Chicago Med, eager to resume her old job. Jackie's Chicago Med return is vital to Season 10. Her recovery dovetails with Hannah's mental health storyline. Chicago Med Hannah continues resuscitating a patient who is already gone. Chicago Med's Hannah Asher has risked relapse of her drug addiction because of her mental health challenges in Season 10, and her difficulty letting go of guilt over a patient's death is underscored by Jackie's return. Jackie had a similar problem when she was self-harming to deal with burnout. She has since recovered, yet having to deal with people's mistrust because of what she faced. If Jackie continues to work at Gaffney, she could be an inspiration to Hannah in Hannah's mental health improvement journey. Chicago Med's dedication to depicting mental health issues related to work is unusual on television. Jackie's story explores what happens to people who once faced a major health problem but wish to return to their normal professional routines, which is an important theme that is not often addressed in medical dramas. Additionally, Jackie's return provides an effective subplot to Hannah's mental health journey storyline, and the characters could support each other through their recoveries.